Hello and welcome to the next episode of Going Nowhere with Levi and Ray. Just starting off here. Admittedly, there are so many different directions that I'd like to go into just based on some of the experiences that I've been having lately. But I think it's fascinating because we have talked so often on the podcast over the last several years about being sensitive to when your focus changes from the experience you're having to what it potentially means about the person you think you are. And in expanding that sensitivity and developing that sensitivity, you start to notice more and more moments where everything was fine until you made it about you. Everything was just what it was until it became something that was reflective of the value or rightness of your character, the character that you identify with in your head, because it's not you. Your value is immeasurable. The idea of your value going up and down is entirely fictional and dependent on a character in your head. The character in your head isn't who you are. It's just your assumptions of who you are, which is why you think you can assign it value because you think you fucking know everything about that character and where it fits in everybody else's life. And so that idea of value is not there. But as soon as you rise to the temptation to validate that idea that your value does go up or down, you're stuck in it and you fail to see the big picture. You fail to see moments and different reactions from people and reasons why they react that way and how that might somehow resolve itself later if you don't immediately panic. You miss all of these things because you rise to this idea of value. And that's just one example of how suddenly we will make it about quote unquote us when it's not. And what's fascinating about that is that there is an immediate consequence to doing it that we can ignore because we're so focused on the benefit that we think we're going to get. But it's there. And once you get into the practice of just not investing in that immediate, oh, I got to protect this idea of myself, so often you start to see more of the life around you grow rather than the character you were fixated on protecting, barely striving forward or barely making it forward because you expand as a person. You become more of everything that's going on around you and less of the character that was never you to begin with. So I've been experiencing a lot of that lately, specifically how things will be just fine until someone, and sometimes that's me, I'll admit that, of course, makes it about them. Everything's just fine until someone makes it about them. And then chaos ensues. And it's so interesting to watch because eventually the resolution is that person either getting over it or doubling down until they're no longer in your life. But it's fascinating to watch because everything's just fine until someone takes something personally, until somebody has to have more than someone else, until someone is satisfying some insecurity. And that is where all of a sudden everything becomes personal and individual and therefore separate and full of conflict. It's fascinating to watch. So I've been going through a lot of that this week. We'll start there.
Oh, it's so true. Like, I mean, just on a micro scale, I'm experiencing it right now. It's like you're sitting there listening, and I'm hearing, like, it's like the worry about how I will present myself somehow when I'm about to speak that kind of forces or the brain tries to kind of plan, right? So I'm just feeling like I'm listening, but there is a part of me that wants to plan, and sits and comes up with all these things to say. And when I come up with something good, which is the value game, right? Then I'm just a little bit more relaxed. I can feel it. It's like, oh yeah, we got something, It's like yeah. So it's like that's on the micro scale, I guess I would say. But for sure, on a it's everything, right? And something that also hit me is like it's quite interesting to see like if there is an area of your life where you don't derive value, Like for example, I'm working in with some designers, right? In this company I'm working for, and they have their field, design, and that's their thing. While I'm not really like considering myself to have any value in that space. So when I'm like coming with ideas for design and it's getting shut down, it doesn't hurt so much. But if it was about something I feel, it's my area, or it's just yeah. So it's like yeah. I get exactly. Hmm.
And that's it. It's fascinating because immediately you remove this fear of failure and in a willingness to quote unquote fail, because you're not failing at that point. If you're not afraid of it, it's not failure. It's just another step in learning. It's just another step in growth. It's when you become afraid of it that it becomes this concept of failure. So having an idea shut down by people, if it's not something you identify with, if it's not something that's about you, just becomes more growth. And that's what I mean. There's that because you can try to grow as a person, but it's still about this very tiny idea of you that you are simply trying to manipulate to be a bit more comfortable. But if you were to let go of that idea of you, you would have so many more experiences where you would quote unquote be willing to fail and therefore grow. And in that growth, you would learn empathy, you would make connections with other people, you would be able to communicate and experience things in a different way because it wouldn't be through the lens of this concept, of this idea of you that is not you. And I cannot drive this home enough. The person you're thinking about is not you. It's not you. It can't be because you can't possibly look at the entirety of your life all at once. You can't possibly look at every decision that's leading to the decisions you're making now. You can't look at every influence. You can't look at every relationship. You can't look at everything that has ever conditioned you to think in any way. Like you can't look at all this stuff. You just can't. And so the person you're thinking about isn't you. It's a simplification of all of that stuff. So you can feel certain that you know who you are. And it's a trap. You know that you are. That's enough. That is enough. It's enough to know that you are. You are here. That is the reality. That's the reality. And you can live in that reality. And it has the most incredible impact. And admittedly, this is something I've been dealing with a bit lately because at one point, I remember I was laughing about this last night. I used to do certain exercises to practice presence, quote unquote. I would, like identify five things you can see and three things you can hear, and all these things. And don't get me wrong, those practices are great. But what inevitably happens is that if you are willing to let go of the practice, you start to recognize that you were never practicing presence. You are practicing being who you are, that you are, in fact, presence. You are the experience of presence. You can't try to be present, but you can certainly convince yourself you're not. You can get lost in the idea of time. You can get lost in all that. But what's funny about that is that eventually it just comes to acceptance. All of this stuff, and this is, I've been trying to caution people about this for the entirety of the podcast. All of this conceptual, high minded stuff really are different pathways to you just accepting yourself as you are right now without needing to think about it, justify it, validate it, compare it. That's all it is. That's what quote unquote enlightenment is the recognition that the darkness that you're thinking about isn't isn't here. It's just in your head. It's just part of the character, the story, all of that. But that you will always be here. That's why people call it God's forgiveness. And of course, that's going through the lens of fucking irresponsibility, but it's self forgiveness. It's the fact that you can just let go and admit that you hold on because you're afraid. And that's it. But what's fascinating, I'm going to go back to this now because I totally went on a tangent, is that more and more I change as a person. Because again, like these exercises are great, but eventually you just have to leap. Eventually you have to just have faith in yourself. Just stop thinking that it means something about you and continue on and see what happens. And do that for long enough, day after day, moment after moment. year after year. And what you find is that a lot of the things that at one point you struggle to maintain quote unquote presence through, you don't. You don't even think about it anymore. It becomes second nature because you've been doing it for so long and with so much attention, because that changes everything. If you're doing it just to, and I mean this, if you're doing any of this because of what it means about you, it's gonna set you back. It's going to make it harder for you to actually make steps forward, because that's the whole point. It's not about what it means about you, it's about your changing experience, not what it means, but what it does. It doesn't matter if you have an insight, if that insight is then used to maintain your ego as having more value because you've had an insight. Whereas if you just have the insight and then let it go, you have been changed by it. And it really just comes back to holding on to that thing. But if you don't, and you continue to change, and you continue to grow, and you continue to just be here and let that happen. And I mean that, it's so hard to describe because it's like you're growing as a person, but you're also growing as the whole. You're growing with everyone else when you're doing this because you're actually there with them. But what happens, or at least this is what I've been experiencing lately, especially lately, is that you're not participating in their story. I know a number of people here in town. People are coming up to me all the time because we do a lot of local advertising and we do a lot of karaoke, and we're very, I guess, engaged with the community. We got a concert coming up, things like that. And so a lot of people come up and I talk to them, and for the time that they're with me, I lift them up, not intentionally, but I'm not dragging them down. So I'm just very excited to be with them. I'm enthusiastic about being with them. And if I'm not, I'm very attentive when I'm with them. But I don't hold on to them once they're gone. And I don't maintain their story in my head. I don't assume the person they just told me they are is who they are. And so people have this experience with me where they feel very open for the most part. They love to chat and feel very good. And then after the fact, they try to turn me into something in a story. And so they're like, well, does Ray like want to hang out more? Does Ray want to go out with me? Is Ray attracted to me? Any of these things? And it's like, no, I'm just paying attention to you. I'm just paying attention to you. But isn't it so funny that because we spend so little time paying attention to one another, because we're so caught in our heads and our own needs, that as soon as somebody does, there's a degree of connection and intimacy. And we don't know what to do with that, because the only time we experience it is when we find someone that we feel we can let our guard down. And that's the basis of so many relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, even familial relationships. You are close to the people that you don't have to think about yourself with. And so you can practice that all the time with everybody by just not thinking about yourself. And what you're going to find is that the people who hang out with you think about themselves less. They might bring their story in, but because you don't place it as something that actually has anything to do with their value as a person, because you're not assigning them a concept based on the show that they're going through in front of you, they start to feel more free. And before you know it, they're joking a little more, laughing a little bit more, maybe not taking themselves so seriously. Right. And the funniest part about it is that you've done nothing except enjoy your life more, except let go of that person that you thought you were. It's not that you're out changing the world or making ripples or any of that, because again, that's all based on the idea of you that you are not. What you do know is happening is what is happening and how free you feel within it. And that's really it. Just be free, and freedom spreads.
Yeah, absolutely. There is always the temptation, right, to kind of bring it on myself, sort of as kind of the doer, or like, the achiever of whatever is happening, right? And yeah, it's a trap. It's a tempting trap, I would say, but it's like it's not really. It is, as you say, it has a backside as well, right? It is the you take yourself up, you can fall down, right? And you gotta keep like maintaining this whole whatever it is you think you're providing, right? You gotta keep doing that, virtually forever or until you find something else to keep you up instead, right? So I yeah, I recognize this a lot, and I can see like even though I feel like that was is less kind of present in my it's easier to recognize and let go when it's happening, but I can constantly kind of see that it is trying to seep in, you know, and sometimes something comes through the cracks, I guess. So then it takes a little while to recognize.
Well, and that's it. That's the process. I mean, that's the whole thing is that it's all shades of gray. You're never getting to a finish line, right? Like when I say don't don't focus on that idea of yourself. I'm not saying it's not in there because your brain needs a point of reference. Your mind needs a point of reference. You versus everything else, the observer versus the observed. And so there's always this idea of you. And I was describing this before. I don't remember what episode it was, but I was talking to my daughter about this recently. It's very cool. My daughter's 17 and we're having a lot more of these conversations now because she's of course thinking about her life going forward and everything she's learned so far. But it's always so tempting to forget that our name is very much like a variable name. It's not a set thing like we think it is. It's not like, the address on a house. This is the house. That's not what it is. It's a variable name, very much like X in math. X equals question mark, right? And it's because X can equal anything. X can equal anything. It's just a container. It's just a variable name. So if we get caught on X always equals 3, when that's not the case, then we're going to get every fucking problem wrong. We're going to continue to run into conflict all the time because we're assuming, no, this variable never changes. This variable is always 3. But X, or in this case, Levi, or in this case, Ray, is a variable name. It's not a set thing, which means that it's always changing. We forget that. We refer to ourselves as if we were the person that we were 2 seconds before, and we're not because things have changed. We have grown. However imperceptible it may be, growth is constant, but it's the shades of gray. It's the shades of gray. And that's why I still go through insecurities. But what's fascinating about it is that while going through the insecurity, rather than, oh man, I'm still insecure, but I gotta face that. I will look at that process. I will step back and go, isn't that fascinating how I'm still trying to feel secure? Isn't that fascinating how I'm still running through this idea that I know isn't me? I know it's not me, but that doesn't mean I'm stopping it from happening. Why? Because if I did that, I would never be able to relate to anyone because they're all going through different shades of that. That's all we're going through. This is why people talk about enlightenment like it's the fucking pinnacle. It's not. What it is just the recognition that you're not thinking about reality. And everything's a spectrum in terms of how much you think you are thinking about reality versus how little you think you're thinking about reality. It really is that. Most of our mental health disorders really come down to just an overcommitment to our thoughts being real, to our thoughts being reality, whether they're about you or about other people, about the media, about the world, about conspiracies. It could be anything. Could be anything. The fact is that we don't know that what we're thinking about is our brain's best approximation for what it is we're experiencing through the lens of a single experiencer. It's such a difficult thing for us to grasp. And it's because we really get caught up in that idea of ourselves. And of course we do, because we needed it at one point to survive. And not just individually, but in terms of our species as well, organically. All animals need to be thinking about themselves to some degree, or they have no survival mechanism, right? But it's how much we get caught up in the idea versus the reality. Is it about who you think you are, or is it about the fact that you are? Because that's enough. Just value that. You exist here. You don't need to know everything about yourself to do that. You just need to keep moving forward. So, that said, I want to get into a little bit more of the benefits, I think, of doing that, as well as what we've been experiencing on the dualistic unity side, because you were talking about some projects that you've been involved with, and again, like spitballing ideas, throwing shit at the wall, having fun when it doesn't mean something about you. And I would say that that is something that is a direct correlation to just taking yourself less seriously. Because at one point, I wouldn't have been able to do that. Like at one point, I would have been sitting in a room trying to think about ideas, feverishly trying to find the right idea that was going to make my path, that was going to define my future, make me feel like, yeah, I know this is going to work. This is going to work. And people are going to love it. Everything's going to be fine, you know? And if I didn't feel confident about that idea, I couldn't explore it whatsoever. And so I think a big part of this is useful on the entrepreneurship side. You know, like because we talk about this stuff and people tend to go, "Oh, yeah, well, it's all philosophy, it's spirituality." I think it's really just getting out of your own way, unlocking your own potential, realizing that the biggest hurdle in your life tends to be your assumption that you can't do something. That's really it. Because if you're not saying you can't, then at least you're willing to try. That's really it. And the trying itself changes you. The trying itself helps you grow. Like I'm doing things right now that involve skills that at one point I was begrudgingly learning for a job. You know what I mean? Like I would learn things like, oh God. And now they add to my life in a way where I'm like, God, I'm glad I learned that. Just little things could be doing your own goddamn plumbing at home, you know, solving your own computer issue. At one point, you weren't happy about having to learn that, you know, but isn't that funny? If you could go back now knowing what impact it would have on the rest of your life, I bet you'd be happy about learning that. Your attitude would change entirely as you learned it, regardless of the fact you're like, this isn't going to be fucking useful to me ever. And it's like, well, maybe 20 years down the road, it might be. And it's worth it. 20 years down the road, it really is. And that's the whole point. Like you're just picking up valuable pieces all the time, all the time. Sometimes they don't go together for a long time and they just sit on a fucking shelf in the back. And then all of a sudden, one day you're like, oh, I remember when so and so taught me when I was fucking 18 years old. That's so cool. And then you learn a new thing from there because you have some grounding in it that you wouldn't have had otherwise. I say this to everybody, learn everything. Learn everything. Just be open to it. You don't need to be a specialist in everything, but you hear things all the time from everyone. People will mention things to you about books, about stories, about things they've heard, things they saw on TV, things they thought were funny. There is context in all of this. You're learning more about everything when you expose yourself to everything. And yet we seem to think that unless it somehow fits into a category that gets us going in a direction that we have deemed valuable, it has no value. And that attitude changes everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I've noticed the same a lot, like in the whole business part of it. Like the yeah, there's been like extremely stressful parts of my life, which also, some was great, some was kind of failures, quote unquote. But it's like I'm like in what I'm doing now, I'm using almost all of it, like my whole career, literally. Like, so it's so weird almost to see, and it's like, yeah, I don't know kind of which way it goes if you end there because you have those skills, or I don't know, but it's like I think it is pretty incredible. And another thing about the whole learning thing is like I just because there we talked a little bit about this before, but it's like there's part of my job that isn't necessarily like super it's not like the most fun thing I do basically, but it's like just it becomes so much better if I don't resist it, It's like it's not because then I'm kind of into it, and it's like there's stuff to be done. There is a lot of you can at least be there, you know what I mean? And it's like okay, and I'm not going to be doing those things forever, like or who knows, But it's like the point is just being there with the task, no matter what it is, it's just so much lighter than resisting it, basically. I don't know. And it's yeah, and also if I can just add a little bit on the whole throwing things on the wall thing and just kind of trying things. I've been, I've been doing that so much more, in general, I would say. But I there's a I've just noticed lately like how much of kind of uh there's a comfort element, or like it I've just noticed how much I like to be comfortable, or like it's like I'm very much kind of wanting just to be comfortable. And like if I go out and it's cold, I like put my hands in the pocket because I don't want to freeze. But then it's like, why? It's like it's not a problem that some wind is kind of coming on my hands, right? And it's just the very similar thing with these experiments in business, because it's uncomfortable, and it's like, but why is that a problem? It's like, why can't you just sit with that discomfort for a little bit, just like I put my hands out, and walk like a normal person, or like, you know what I mean? It's like it feels much freer, and it doesn't hurt, the cold. And it's exactly the same with these things. But then again, like it's the idea of yourself. It feels like it hurts because it's so risky, because what if it's wrong, What if it's wrong, this thing I'm doing? Like, what happens then? Yeah.
And it goes into other areas too. I love the fact that we're talking about facing the elements, as it were, right? Because that's facing everything. And the thing that we forget, because we get so caught up in the idea of ourself and the assumptions that we make, and again, that temptation for comfort, that we forget how much we can take. We spend so much time being afraid that we can't take it that we forget we've taken everything. And it could be anything. Like it could be the discomfort of going, oh, well, I'm going to spend some extra time on this project and it may not go anywhere. It's like, so there's discomfort in that you don't know it's going to go somewhere, that it may not be serving some purpose for your, ego, the idea of you. So you face the discomfort, you grow as a person because you did something. But what's funny about this, and again, I know because I've done this for so very long, is that I can sit there and talk my way out of doing something quote unquote uncomfortable that would help me grow, just so I can sit and bitch about how my life isn't changing. And isn't that fascinating? Because if I wanted my life to change, I would go do the uncomfortable thing. I would go do things that aren't in the spectrum of what I'm always fucking doing. And what I'm always fucking doing is thinking about myself. And that is what helps your life change. You actually start participating in it because you stop telling it what you want it to do. And that's change because every time it's about you, it's about the idea of you. And that's everything you've ever fucking known. How do you want to experience the unknown if you're only ever thinking about what you think you know? You can't. You have to let it go. That was Krishnamurti's whole point. Like, you all want the unknown, but you want to know what the unknown is before you go into the unknown. And so everything you're thinking about is based on shit you've done before, things you've thought before. How can you get to the unknown if you won't let go? And that's why I find this conversation to be incredible, because it touches all aspects of our life. Another perfect example, going back to the hands being cold. People who are manipulative, people who are seeking attention, people who are dramatic, people who want to involve you in their stories, people who judge you, people who, do actually have some issue with you for entirely their own reasons. And you're going to run across these people all the time. And it can become so hard sometimes to remind yourself, well, they can't hurt you. Like the idea of you that they have an issue with isn't you, right? That's the reality. The fact is, they can judge you all fucking day, and it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference unless you identify with it, unless you start worrying about it. Oh my God, they're judging me. My value's going down. It's like, no, because their judgments aren't objective truth. They don't know reality any more than you do. And you're literally living your life, and you can't say that you fully know yourself, just that you are. And so you start to recognize this and recognize that it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't hurt me when somebody comes up and they're talking to me only because of how it validates them in some way because they want to feel like they're liked or they want to feel like they belong to the group or because they're trying to get something out of you. Because that happens and it's hard to walk away sometimes and realize like that doesn't hurt you. So what? They're being manipulative. So what? They're being selfish. Just don't participate. You don't have to judge them. Just don't participate. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Right? But it's the recognition that you can take that and still be okay. That makes it easier to do that and still be okay. Because otherwise, you just get sick of it. You're like, God damn fucking people, and we've all said it. Like all of a sudden, we're looking at people in general with any degree of accuracy rather than just our opinion based on how we feel about ourselves right now. Right. It's just so important to recognize that. Like, you're going to get frustrated. You're going to go through shit. You're going to feel abused. You're going to feel like you are not appreciated or recognized. And here's the thing. So what? Who cares if you feel that way when you know it's based on an idea that's not you? Feel it, learn from it, grow from it, realize where you're over invested, but don't judge yourself for feeling it, right? Because that's how you learn. That's how you get to see how the fiction of you operates and the tentacles it has on your life. It's to allow yourself to feel these things and to recognize where it comes from and to recognize that it's based on a fiction, a necessary fiction. I will say that it's a necessary fiction, but you're going to go through shit. And I want to cover this quickly because I know we were talking about it previously. So right now we're going through a thing with Dualistic Unity, and it's very much based on the conversation that we have on the podcast being misconstrued as being spiritual or philosophical or quote unquote cult like. And it's because the conversation asks nothing of you. We don't want you to follow somebody. We don't want you to, find some new pathway in life based on this. We don't want you thinking about Dualistic Unity as anything really other than a podcast and the name of a company. Because that's really what it is. Because you will find it's very tempting to go, oh, this stuff sounds so good. In the same way, it's tempting to go, oh, this person makes me feel like I matter because they're paying attention to me like I matter, and then turn that into something about that person. It's the same thing with the podcast. The podcast might give you a conduit to explore thoughts and feel certain things and feel a certain type of freedom about yourself while you're listening to the conversation, but it's not the podcast doing that. It's your willingness. It's your willingness to be present in the conversation. It's your willingness to let go while you're here. And so it's so important to recognize like it's not about DU. It's not about the podcast, not about me. It's not about Levi. It's not about Amanda. It's not about Andrew. It's not about any of us. Any of us. It's about you, the listener. It's about you and what you're willing to let go of moment to moment to moment. It really is. And if it's not, then it becomes another part of the story. And it's so easy to vilify people. It's easy to vilify a podcast or a company, based on an idea of yourself. And this goes back to what we've been saying. Like that idea of yourself twists everything. And so we've been facing some backlash here locally because some people felt threatened by the growth of our business. And we'll get into that in a minute because it's super exciting. And it triggered the idea of them, which was worried about losing their business or worried about not being as successful on their side. And so the immediate reaction was vilify, vilify these people, vilify that company. Don't even do any research, just vilify them. And so we've had this change in public attitude that's gone through waves over the last month and a half as the vilifications kind of run its course. And I think that's the important part here. Is this is what I want to say is that if you don't rise to these things, they will eventually fade away because of the truth. And the truth is who you are. But if you defend yourself, you're not defending yourself. You're defending the idea of you, which is not you. So just digging in perpetuates this shit more than anything else. If somebody's like, you're a bad person, you're like, I'm not a bad person, and here's why. You're just doubling down, and now you're being threatened. And so, more likely, you're going to do something that would come across as selfish or self involved because you feel insecure and afraid. Whereas if you were to just go, all right, you think what you want to think, I'm just going to hang here and be me. And over time, the reality of you starts to seep in. It really does. It's very difficult for somebody to have an issue with an idea of you when the reality of you is contradicting that idea every step of the way. Have faith in that. Really, have faith in yourself. You will shine through the shit eventually, unless that person is super committed to holding on to that shit, in which case, just count it as a bullet dodged and move on with your life. Let them do what they need to do. You don't need to be there. But it helps to remember it's not you. It's really not. Just let it go. It will pass. But that's a long-term thing. That's one thing I like about aging is you start to realize like time keeps going. The thing you're panicking about today may not be there in a week, a month, a year.
Yeah, it sounds like quite a challenging and interesting kind of journey, right? Through something pretty yeah, pretty intense, I imagine.
Well, it's
And
like anything. You felt it in your own life. We've all felt it in our own lives, except it usually happened during childhood because as we get older, we tend to separate a bit more and we don't deal with a lot of our insecurities, a lot of our emotional shit. We reserve that stuff for the people that are close to us. But when, when we're younger, it's more on the surface because we don't have the experience. And so having a group of people making fun of you in school, for example, we all know that feeling. Having the feeling that people are judging you, that you're not enough, and that everybody in the room or a group of people don't like you. Like we've all had that feeling. We all can resonate with that feeling. What we don't usually like to admit is that we still have that feeling, which is why we don't want to go out into public. It's the reason we get socially anxious or that we have to identify with a certain group that thinks our way. I found my people now, like these are the things that extend from that fear that we've all had, from that feeling that we've all experienced. And it's the willingness to face it. It's the willingness to face it and recognize that the reaction you had back then was based on an idea of you that was growing into something that one day you would let go of. And so it's the pain that we tend to run away from, not recognizing that we wouldn't have that pain if we were to face it now. Why? What's the difference? Oh, well, I've learned not to take those people so seriously. No, you've learned to not take yourself so seriously. You've learned to not take the idea of yourself so seriously. The judgment of those people isn't so important because they're not looking at you. That is the spectrum that changes. And it's what allows you to keep moving forward with people, with projects, with hobbies, with nothing at all. Nothing at all. You can spend a day doing nothing and be perfectly okay with that because not everything has to fit in this box of being beneficial. Because how do you know what's beneficial? Fact is, you could think going to the gym every day is going to be beneficial until it gives you a heart attack because you don't take any rest, right? It's easy to feel in control. It really is. But when you don't need to, wow, do you ever expand? And do you ever grow? And I wanted to get into this because this is kind of the exciting part. So, Dualistic Unity started as a podcast. And after that, started doing retreats. And now we have a book, Proof That You're God. Over 500 copies sold. It's doing very well since we released it. I'm very excited about that. We have workshops online. We now have a local karaoke business because we have figured out that karaoke in itself, whether you're singing or not, is a better conduit, in my humble opinion, based on my own experience, for authenticity and growth than psychedelics. And I say that because it may not feel like you're making the same leaps and bounds after the fact because you're not going to go, oh my God, that was so profound. Oh, and then immediately identify with how profound you fucking are now. You will have a night where you feel free. You'll have a night where you feel free. And the more often you do that, the more you start to recognize where that freedom's coming from and what it's limited by. And the mushrooms or the psychedelics, as beneficial as they can be, often set people back. And I say this after the last 2 years of retreats, genuinely giving everything I've had to everybody who's come and seeing that while certain people did, in fact, benefit from the experience and they used it responsibly and they took it as an opportunity to do some serious fucking work. Other people looked at it as an opportunity to just brag about how many mushrooms they did or talk about, how trippy the whole experience was and then stop doing the work after the fact, right? Or only do the work when there's quote unquote psychedelics involved. And that in itself becomes a form of escape. That in itself becomes a form of control. And I'm not saying that psychedelics are bad by any means. What I'm saying is that, as with everything, it comes down to why you're doing it. Is it because of what it means about you? Is it? Is it because it's going to advance your consciousness and it's going to suddenly make you a more enlightened person? Because if that's the case, you're squandering it. And that's why I say karaoke seems to be a better conduit, because you're much more likely to not make karaoke about you once you let go. Because the whole fear going into karaoke is all about the fiction of you. What are they going to think? Oh my God, I'm going to miss a note. Oh, people are going to judge me. It's all about the opinion of you. And once you sing, you have done something actionable from the state of mind that you're in. You didn't need help. From the state of mind you're in, you have done an action that faces that shit and makes an actual choice to not commit to it, to sing anyway. And what better celebration, what better victory immediately after choosing to not think about yourself than to sing with people who are singing with you in celebration of our mutual courage to just be there, to be here. And so I've seen people grow so much more from karaoke, frankly, than from psychedelics. It's not that I haven't seen people grow from psychedelics, but I've seen people leave the path more often than not from psychedelics. The path that they found via psychedelics. They're like, aha, this is it. This is awareness. Like, but not if you need to keep leaning. Not if you need to keep defining what awareness is. Not if you can't accept where you are the rest of the time. And I say this as somebody who went down that path. You know, karaoke, it changes things. And so now we're doing karaoke here on the island. We are the fastest expanding karaoke business here on Vancouver Island. In the last 6 months, we have doubled the amount of venues that we are performing at, which is fantastic. But we've also made incredible connections with the community, business owners, locals, all of them. And as a result of that, now we're doing a concert at the largest venue in town. It's featuring a Tragically Hip cover band on Canada Day. The Tragically Hip are a Canadian band. They are the Canadian band. They played for like 40 years. They are as iconic as they can get in a country. If you were in Canada and said, name a Canadian band, 3 out of 4 times they're going to go Tragically Hip, which is funny because most people have never heard of the Tragically Hip outside of Canada. So if you're listening, go and check out the Tragically Hip. They're fantastic. And there was so much in terms of commitment to the people, the communities, the neighbors, everybody in the country, because that's what builds a community. And so we are focused on that for Canada Day. We're raising money for a food share society here locally that helps people get affordable food, as well as a youth fiddle group. Everybody knows them as Fidelium. They have a bursary for kids that can't necessarily afford to join Fidelium or the Fiddle Society. So we're raising money for that too. So this is all going back to the original conversation of, well, why not? Fuck it, let's try. And that's really it. And so all of a sudden, at a private party last week, doing karaoke, chatting with some people we've chatted with forever, another opportunity pops up where a person who has been running a business here on the island for 20 years, recently got out of it because of COVID, wants to pass on their clients, wants to pass on their venues, wants to pass on their basically wedding DJ business to us. And that is now being absorbed, which requires us to learn more about the wedding industry and facilitates ultimately what we wanted to do with the full-time retreat center here on the island. Because when we're not doing retreats, we want to rent out the place for weddings as well. And so this is all happening by virtue of just connection, just enthusiasm, just people being free to be themselves, feeling at ease, and making connections as a result of that state, as opposed to what I used to do, which was go to a chamber meeting, go to a business meeting, go to a social mixer, pass your business card around, let people know what you do, all that stuff. And I'm doing none of that. I'm doing none of that, and I'm seeing more growth of potential in my life, in dualistic unity, in every aspect of what we're doing. We have a venue here in Nanaimo that offered itself to us to purchase, possibly, and this could possibly be a full-time karaoke venue. And this was just a result of, again, getting to know that owner over the last year of being incredibly involved with the community. And what I mean by incredibly involved with the community is not involved with the idea of myself. That's what it is. Every day, instead of doubling down on that idea of what I'd like to do today, which usually involves comfort and a lot of what I already know, I go out. That's it. I just go out. I don't always know where I'm going, but I'm going. And in that, I meet people. I talk to people. I see something. Maybe I don't talk to anybody, but I see a poster that I didn't see before. And that leads to a conversation I'm going to have next fucking week. But what's crazy about it, it's just the willingness to participate that suddenly starts bringing threads in that tie to other threads that you would not have seen if you were looking for a certain thread that had a certain color and matched a certain pattern, right? Because you like that pattern. It means more about you. And so I just find it fascinating. There's so much growth and so much potential, and we are just going through it, man. There's so much happening, regardless of people having a beef. More people are resonating with the fact that we are just continuing forward like it doesn't matter because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to pass this over to Levi, but I want to mention to everybody we have our second investor round coming up very shortly for Dualistic Unity. Obviously, we're going through a lot of expansion. We've got a lot coming. We got another couple of books that are on the way as well. If you are interested in participating in our next investor presentation, go to dualistiCunity.com/invest. Just fill in the information. Let us know what you're interested in. We've got, of course, the media company, the book, the podcast, karaoke, which is a part of all of that. We're also getting into real estate and we want to get into cannabis cultivation. So let us know what you're interested in, and we will be happy to share that presentation with you as we get into the summer. But man, it's exciting times. And of course, Levi and a number of others have been kind of toying with the idea of maybe doing some karaoke on their end as well. And so we may be offering some workshops for people who want to learn how to host karaoke. We can help you get set up. It's a really easy thing to do. And frankly, if you enjoy people, if you enjoy feeling free, if you enjoy singing at home, you may enjoy hosting karaoke in your town. You may enjoy just having a night. 3 hours? 3 hours isn't bad. You can do it. So we have one night from 7 to 10. We have another night from 9 to midnight. So it really depends on your venue. It really depends on your crowd, but it's really not difficult to set up. It takes no time at all. And before you know it, you're not just making a little money on the side, you're making friends, you're building community, and you're establishing connections with people within your community that you may not have done otherwise. It's absolutely worth it as an exercise. And again, I recommend it over psychedelics.
No, absolutely. I'm quite excited about that possibility to just go out there, and because I what you're saying there would just you know you have you have this feeling, oh, I just want to be comfortable, all the things I like, blah blah blah, and versus just going out. I'm doing that sometimes, but not as often as I should, quote unquote. But whenever I do, it is incredible. Like especially I feel when I don't have any, purpose with it. You just go out there, even if you just go to downtown, grab some food, go to a karaoke pub, maybe one you haven't been to before, and it's just an incredible evening, and the day feels so long, when you do that kind of stuff, and it has nothing to do with the psychedelics and all that stuff. It's just what are you like, yeah, versus just doing what I like, it's like it's boring. It's it's actually boring. So yeah, I feel that a lot. And today was one of those days. I was a little bit tired because I had a super like a physical day yesterday. But I woke up and I didn't go out, I took my coffee like here. I went right outside to drink the coffee, but it was like I just stayed here in my comfort zone, and I haven't gotten out of it, sort of, But then I went for a walk, like uh, an hour before this call along the river. you know, and it's just you suddenly like there is energy, you know. And that's fascinating because yeah, it's but it's okay to be tired as well. I'm not saying like, you know, it's yeah.
No, absolutely. But how much of that fatigue is the story as opposed to genuine fatigue? And it really is that. It's amazing how much our attitude towards life, our attitudes about assumptions really changes physiologically. Like it really has an impact on us. You can go and see those before and after photos of people who have meditated for 6 months, right? So you see the before photo and then after meditation practice for 6 months, just daily, doesn't matter, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is. They look younger. They look obviously younger. And why? Well, because they're spending more time outside their story. They're spending more time observing the story than reacting to the story, which is really all meditation is teaching you. Observe, stop reacting, right? See the thought go by. Don't immediately go, oh, I got to react to that because that's where most of our stress comes from, right? It really is. It's not the thought. It's not the thought. We want to think, oh, if the thoughts went away, I'd be fine. You'd find something else to react to because it's you. It's not the thought, it's the reaction to the thought. And the beautiful part about that is that you can leave the thoughts alone and just work on your reaction. People want to solve the thoughts. They're like, oh, I got to resolve this past trauma. It's like, no, you need to stop reacting to it. And as you stop reacting to it, it will reveal other thoughts. You will see other layers behind it. But it's like the cold. If you were to immediately feel a cold on your hands and shove them in your pockets, you're never going to realize that cold wasn't actually a danger and that you're never going to feel how crisp and vibrant it was. You're not going to feel the nature around you because you're immediately like, oh God, and you panic. And that changes your ability to experience it. And that's really everything. That's so much of what it is. And again, it comes down to recognizing people are right now saying, you are enough. You can take it however you want to put it. You're fine. It's not what you think it is. You are still here. It's not who you think you are. It's that you are. All right. So, all of this said, it's been a fantastic conversation. I didn't realize we're almost at the hour mark. So, we definitely went on a journey in this episode of Going Nowhere. I want to thank everybody who has ever been a part of the conversation, who has joined us on Discord, joined us on Patreon groups, just listen to the podcast. Hell, just spent a moment of honesty with yourself. I want to thank Levi, Amanda, Andrew, all of you. And it's because you are all doing the work in yourself. You're all doing the work in yourself, but you've all encouraged this growth. You've helped me every step of the way face more and more about myself. I experience myself in a way that is so radically different than I was in episode 1 of this podcast. And all of that growth is largely facilitated by all of you. And so I just want to say thank you no matter what your level of participation is or non-participation with the podcast, just the fact that you're out there, thank you, because you're making everything change, not the idea of you, but the reality of you. And so it means a lot to me. And I recognize that change every day. And I know you're doing it because you and I are in this together. Levi, man, this has been so much fun. Thank you for joining me, brother.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
See you next time.